And I'm happy to have him here. Welcome, André Morys. Thank you. Now I know who reads our blog. You're the one. Welcome. And I have to put on my glasses. Here we are. Some people are still coming in. So what will I talk about? Data and psychology and how that links up and results in growth is the disruption in the head of the customer. That's what I called it. Those who want to have buyers, more turnover, what you want is to change the behavior of human beings. So the customers who buy and the return you see, the turnover you see is customers' behavior. And you have to understand that if you want to change it. We've got this rare combination of data and psychology. Does anybody use data scientists? Hand up. Does analytics people, do you use analytics people? Here we are. Do you work with a psychologist? Here we are. So there are some people using them, and it's a very rare combination. And this is why I started with this pink unicorn to show you how rare it is to work with this combination. So what does it mean? Our brain always draws preemptive conclusions. When you see this picture, yes, it fits. You know who it is? Theresa May. This effect is the Thatcher effect, because a psychology professor in the 80s did that with pictures of Margaret Thatcher. And I'm so old, and most people don't remember who Margaret Thatcher was. So it works with Theresa May as well. Same effect. What is the problem with the picture? The eyes are turned around, and the mouth. Only when you see it the right way around, you realize how shit this looks. Sometimes you're not allowed to use these expletives, but it doesn't really look very good. So because our brain, I just return it back to the other view. So my brain says, yeah, I know what it is. It's a face. I needn't think about that. This is the autopilot function in our head. And it says, needn't think about that any further. It's a face, a human face. The problem is this kind of ability on the base of patterns to take decisions happens in our job on a daily basis. When you sit down and think about what can I do to generate more turnover, to grow faster, you've got the same problem. You suffer from thinking in patterns. So nobody knows what he doesn't know or she doesn't know, and this is the same here, the same effect. Sometimes you have to change your perspective in order to recognize the pattern. André, you're such a conversion expert, so what can I do in order to grow like Amazon? And then I say, you don't think about copying the website. What you need to do is to copy how they have set up the processes or what they actually do. You can't see it. So such a perspective is something I would like to give you, a universal principle you can use in order to optimize your shop and to grow faster. So what is it about? Anybody who has walked in the rain, lonely, standing at a street, and you waited for a taxi and you were getting wetter and wetter, then you know how shitty it feels. Sorry for the expletive again. So, and then you will call the taxi, call a taxi 5 minutes, and it won't appear in 5 minutes. And then you're in a remote industrial park, and after 10 or 5 minutes, a taxi might come. You never know when it comes. It's not a good customer experience. When you ask me why such a shop like Uber growth in a hockey stick effect. It's only understandable that if I'm a conventional taxi operator, what is the difference between me and Uber? And they do have knowledge on the technology, and I haven't. They had a big data infrastructure, mobile apps, and they linked that up. That must be the reason for the growth. This is the so-called cargo cult. That's wrong. To emulate that is not the recipe to success. It's the experience if a customer feels for the first time how easy it is to order a taxi using Uber. And when you see it as a suggestion in Google Maps, did somebody register via Google Maps with Uber? You do that within seconds. That's a customer experience. This kind of hockey stick development is the result of a good customer experience. If there is not a customer who hasn't got the need to not stand in the rain to wait for a taxi, you wouldn't have this effect. This is the hidden picture behind it is when you think about how can I have growth. Templates, buttons, my category page, they have to do something at the checkout. This is what you think of. Your challenge is to analyze the need of the customer. Why is Amazon growing that fast? It grows every year by one auto. To visualize that, the effects in the head. What is it about with Amazon? The feeling that your product arrives on the same day. I had to place and I had to delay an order delivery because they wanted to deliver it right in my office. Please only send it on Monday. So that was the artificial delay in delivery. Customer experience to arrive on the same time. Amazon is growing faster than Google. Airbnb, you understand the principle behind it. People buy an experience. And we have the problem. If we don't understand the pattern, we cannot optimize our turnover. Growth is based on a great customer experience. This is my suggestion to you. I don't know where you do stand in this diagram, and a lot of people say I have to do optimize something. They will shift the buttons from left to right, from top to bottom. The button has to be green, then you've got better sales. And then I say, this is not even innovation you talk about. This is button pushing or template tweaking or optimizing in some details. You can waste resources for years on that. It will not make you more successful. On the left-hand side, where you've got innovation, on the left-hand side from that, there you've got the comfort zone, your comfort zone. Let's leave it as it is. Difficult. And then there are some self-help groups or conferences where people then meet up and talk about disruptive business models. And then I say, good luck. You're all in retail. The disruptive innovation, which will, of course, make your competitors extinct, and you would be the only one next year sitting here. Doesn't help either. You cannot expect this to happen. It's absolutely impossible to happen. But somewhere in between, not doing anything or doing something silly or doing something drastically different, I say there is something where magic happens, where we could have a sweet spot. Going from the left to the right, this is for most of the companies a challenge. And you can believe me, not being big is a huge advantage. Companies with 20 or 100 members of staff are able to change their culture more effectively and faster than large companies, established companies. It's a strength. You have to recognize the pattern, and you have to be able to be in control of the pattern. So what happens with all the others who don't want to go this way? It doesn't hurt them. I went across the car park and I thought the Shopware customers are doing fine. A lot of Audi cars, Tesla, Porsche in the car park. Things seem to be going well in e-commerce. So what's the problem? No pain, no gain. If you haven't felt any pain, you continue doing things as you always done them. So stop doing it before it causes pain. When it causes pain, it costs money. Don't let it get that far. So how do we arrive in the middle? A lot of people use these kind of keywords like digital transformation. We are selling online, so what? There is no transformation. You're in the digital business, and digital means you have to be agile, you have to be data-driven, and you have to be customer-focused. These are the three most important elements. This was always like that. Forget about transformation. I just say, fucking do it. I hope I'm allowed to say that. Simply do it. Be faster than the big ones. You can do it. You're not Amazon, and this is an advantage. So what does happen? Unfortunately, still, are you from Amazon, by the way? No, of course not. Fine. So what does happen? My favorite example, I don't want to offend anybody. This happens again and again, also with Amazon. You get an email based on your last order. We recommend this and that. I ordered 25 times. Why should I buy a Samsung Galaxy Tab White? You don't need data. I wouldn't order it. I only bought Apple products. What would be the last product I would buy? A Samsung product if I use Apple. I know it's a religion. Who's got Apple products? Samsung? Here we are. It's a religion. You can't make people change their minds. Don't even suggest something like that to me. And then I should also register with the newsletter. I said, where is the advertisement? In the newsletter. You don't need a psychologist or a data to understand. It's downright silly. And if you think this is an outlier, you might still be from Amazon. It's an Amazon company. They do know how to use the data. They know everything about us. They won't sell us any silly things. They're clever. No. Look at that. Novels, thrillers, crime stories, science fiction. What did I read? And what I see on my wish lists? Everything all across online marketing. Not one thriller. Why should I be interested in it now? Because the template is designed like that. Somebody designed the template like that. So you understand the pattern I'm talking about. Recommendations. We have a lot of customers say, I pay a lot for the recommendations. Whenever a customer presses this button, then I've got 10 cents. I've got the feeling, is it worthwhile? What would be the loss in return if I did not do recommend? Depending on the quality of the recommendation, there are horrible results. It wouldn't be worse, and maybe even better, because bad recommendations will confuse people. People will say, I wanted to buy this. Oh, no, there is the product in dazzling white. And this is what the effect of bad recommendations are. So what is the reason for that? It's the way of thinking. The pattern is not considered of a way of thinking which happens very quickly. It's not meant as a reproach. There is the way of thinking, technology, templates, customer service, infrastructure, front-end, back-end designer, digital transformation templates, data on analytics, and engagement strategy. What is missing? Missing? Well, you must know. Customer. The customer. Why? Because this is people who haven't got anything to do with customers. They make websites for customers like themselves. This is what your customers look like. Normal people like you and me. Go into a local train and not in a first-class compartment of a train. These are your customers. These are the customers you make your shop for, and I wanted to invite him to my conference. I like him as an opener. Never mind. These are the marketing quotes you all know, but they've got a grain of truth. You don't design the shop for the template or for the usability lab. You design it for the people who are supposed to buy it, and then there will be others and say, you have to AI, machine learning, big data strategy. This is you have to involve in that. What for? How do you earn your money with that? From data? Where does it come from? Data haven't got an ROI. You have to pay money to analyze and collect data. It costs money. It hasn't got an intrinsic return. Data will get their ROI if you design something with the data, which ends up in the brain of the customer and which leads to the response of buying something. Or you recognize something and you improve things. Somebody's brain has to be affected and it has to result in a change of behavior. Customer behavior is growth. And I just would like to give you one example.
Is anybody named Frank? If your name is Frank, I'm sorry, Frank, I have to apologize beforehand because this is Frank. He sells cars. He's a car dealer. Car dealers are not that popular. This is why I apologize beforehand by anybody named Frank in the audience. Don't take it personal. Frank, or are you a car dealer? Because in that case, I would have fucked up great. No, you're not. Great. Frank learns. Frank is somebody you can learn from. What does a good car dealer do? A good car dealer knows I have to sell that thing. It's expensive. This is an expensive car, a couple of value propositions that I have to understand. Is this better? Value propositions, I have to understand all of them. However, I have to understand who my customer is. If my customer, once my customer enters the showroom, I know, thanks to a couple of factors, I get enough information to know. Expensive clothing, seems like he's running out of time, short sentences, a good, strong handshake. And I know he's a performer. He must be a performer. And then I take these value propositions and I change them. I will tell them that the seating can be adjusted, can be made higher, and he'll be the first one to have these LED headlights, and he'll love it. But then another customer comes to my showroom, a family guy, we need more space, we have children, and I know it already by the way they enter, together with a wife, together with a family. I know who the decision takes in that family. It's always the wife. I know by looking at their interaction between husband and wife, who takes the decisions, etc. They talk about their vacations. They have a holiday house in Sweden. I know their type. I can put them into a certain category. Let's call them a harmonizer. You know the principle. You know what I'm getting at. And then, of course, I have to change the value propositions because they don't want to hear about LED headlights, etc. I have to add that you're safe in that car, that this is the perfect car for you as a family. There's an entertainment system integrated for the kids, etc. Because I understand what type of customer that is. That is an age-old principle. It happens again and again with number of products and brands that you as consumers constantly purchase. B2B, B2C, even in B2B, people base their decisions on these things. And the main factor is that is made for me. It has been made exactly for me. And that requires to have a deep understanding of the customers on an emotional level. And this is why I call this resonance. It's resonance. Anybody who's ever pushed their child on a swing, they know how important perfect timing and the perfect force is. A bit too early hurts and a bit too late doesn't make any difference. But with just a little nudge, the child can go up wide in the air. And later on, the child, of course, will learn to do that with its own feet. But that's the resonance principle. However, resonance can also trigger something like that has a rather bad ending. But here too, there are really small impulses at the right point in time, at the right point on the bridge. They can make a bridge crash, actually. And that's the same holds true for the emotional resonance that you have to build up in the relationship with your customers. Without this, selling is something like, let's get rid of everything, no matter how. A good salesperson knows this principle. They know about resonance. And since we're here to learn about smart people, take the strategy principle of Jeff Bezos. Ask yourself what is not going to change over the next 10 years. And if you ask me, something that will never change, it's the human brain, the brain of our customers and the principles on which you base your decisions. The human brain hasn't significantly changed for the past 20,000 years. And the principles, the algorithms, etc. So if you are wondering, how can we grow faster, how can we sell more, then use these principles. Don't only scratch the surface, but work with these underlying principles. The last quote by somebody smart, last smart recommendation for today. It's a good book, by the way. Richard Rumelt wrote the book Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. That's been quite a while ago, but he said a good strategy is about understanding the real nature of a situation, the challenge, and stop thinking just at the surface, the faceted navigation, how can I achieve that? No, do what the good salesman does. What does a good salesperson do? Observe customers, create clusters, and play out the customer experience for the different types, for the different categories, nothing else. And you can do that too online. And if you're now wondering in which order to take, first, did I understand the strategy, the strategic principle? First of all, customers need this emotional resonance. And second comes the technology that helps me to construct something. So many times people look at the technology and think, oh, what could I build with that? I have this personalization tool. What does it allow me to do? I could do this or I could do that. Well, and that's the end of that. At first, you need to understand the direction you're taking, and then you build the tool. Oh, I lied. I have another quote. Sorry. And how does it work online? The same holds true for the online business. Observe customers, in our case, means to collect data, all kinds of data. And to illustrate this is an example by Jakob Nielsen from 1999. Mr. Nielsen, the usability guy, the famous usability guy, Jakob Nielsen took different personality types, put them in front of an eye checker and said, look at this website. And he found that different personalities or different types of human beings have a different eye tracking result. So somebody who's interested in details would like to read more information, but somebody who would take a quick decision looks at a website in a different way. You don't need to use an eye checker to get this kind of data, but basically that's how it works. It's one of the principles how you can observe your customers. So you have tons of data, but you have to find the pattern. However, you need a range of categories, a predefined type, predefined clusters. You will find patterns, but they will be without any meaning to you unless you have predefined clusters or categories. And that is where I come in and where I say psychology, consumer types, and data scientists need to work together. Here, you have to get your personas. These are the customers. Understand your customers, it says. Personas, customer type, definition, whatever it is you're using. And you have to analyze them against your data. You have to look for correlations. The data guys and the psychology guys, you have to lock them up in one room and tell them, we will not let you out unless you have the same understanding about our customers. That is important. Sometimes you know the aggressive comparison a bit of prices. That's a certain type of person, somebody who would go to such a portal that compares prices quite aggressively. That's a type of customer. So there's a simple data point like the referrer, for example. That's an indicator as to what type of customer that is. It's easy. The data guys call that a model. Build a model. Build a model to analyze a behavior. If somebody uses an iPad Pro, it might be yet a different type of customer. And now if somebody uses a Samsung Galaxy Tab dazzling white, oh, well, that's a different story. One example. Imagine you knew which customer types visit your page. You could do great things with that knowledge. For example, these recommendations, you could create them in such a way that they refer to different customer types, because the customer would then respond positively and say, that's exactly what I wanted. And that would be a higher end-to-cart rate. And this is where tests come in to validate this. Does the principle really work? Or you might say, I need the login. People need to log in before they check out. Then I can save my little cookie next time I know earlier who they are. In order for them to log in, we need to encourage them to do so. And if you do that based on a principle taking into account the personality of the customer, you get more logins. Principle works. The shop itself has value propositions. Why would I purchase at your shop? I do hope that you've answered this question for yourselves and for your own shop, and I do hope that it's on your website. Why should I buy with you? Well, it depends on what type of customer I am. And here, too, you are in a position to create specific moods, to use a different tone of voice, to get different types of customers onto your page. And it would mean money, more orders, as much gold as you can harbor in a treasure chest, etc., etc. You know what I mean. So, what is the principle? At first, you need a strategy, and that's the dry theory, I know, but you have to know the real challenge. And the real challenge is the customer, his behavior, and the principles behind that. That's the core of everything. It's not the technology. The technology is the second layer. Once you've realized the principle, technology will enable you to scale the solution. And if you're really, really good, you will know that there's not just one solution to it all, but you might have to experiment and learn in order to optimize, continuously optimize your solution. And that is what shops like Amazon do. And that is exactly what we can learn from Amazon. As a strategy, by the way, it's highly interesting why Amazon works from a psychological point of view. It's consistency and commitment. Amazon Prime members, who orders via Amazon Prime? That is exactly how that works. Commitment and consistency. 120 euros instead of 100. Did you receive the email as well, or just me? Just me. Shit, that was personalized. 120 euros. You know, the principle of consistency and commitment is just the same as with the all-you-can-eat buffet. I've paid the 40 euros. Now let's eat as much as I can. You do this. You do it the same way, right? Don't you? Don't you? Anyway, it is really clever to increase the price for Amazon Prime membership. Then the technology, Amazon Marketplace. And then experiment. Now we'll find out how this works in detail. However, at the core, there still is the strategy. That's the real challenge. Right. If this is a topic you're interested in, there's further information on our blog. I put a little ebook onto our blog, 24 pages if you're interested. Growth Playbook, I called it. Download it from our blog. The principles that I've talked about are here. You can fill it in step by step. Positioning, consumer psychology, prioritization. Download it, fill it in, and get rich. Have fun, and enjoy the rest of the day. Sorry. We have room for questions. Right. André, thank you very much for your presentation. As a thank you, I will not put my finger through my nose into my eye. I will not do that for you. Is there anybody in the audience who's able to do that? Or is there anybody else who simply has a question? Raise your hand. I do not see any requests for the floor. No questions, really? They all want to go outside and enjoy some sun. Or maybe the URL of the download needs to be shown again. This is for you to write down. Write it down. Conversion technology, that's one thing, but doesn't matter. You'll do it. Anyhow, no questions? I don't see any. Oh, yes, there are questions. Hello. That was a fascinating presentation. How often would you reckon you should do experiments in an e-commerce company? 2,000 times per year, that's too much for the rest of us. But could you give us an average figure? How often? What would be your recommendation? Well, it depends on how big the traffic is, how big the samples are. Companies that have more traffic can get bigger samples and do more experiments. But there is the 4-field model of A/B testing from us, where I recommend that companies focus on those experiments that have a business impact. Many shop providers, shop operators, make the mistake of conducting small experiments where they just, a number of small experiments where they just change a button or something like that, but speed versus quality, I would always suggest quality. If you don't have that much traffic, do just 3, better than nothing, but do just 3 a year, but don't try to do as many as possible. This is not the recommendation behind that. This is not what I meant. It is just to explain what kind of knowledge you can get by doing these kinds of experiments and that number of experiments like Amazon. Booking.com claims to do more than 10,000 per year. But my recommendation is not to do many, but to do the right kind of experiments. Thank you. There's another question back there. Thank you very much for this great presentation. Thank you. You said the right things. Different landing pages for different customers, etc. Now, this is a Shopware conference. What can you say about plugins? What kinds of plugins can you recommend? Sorry, I cannot give you any recommendation in that respect. I'm not the tech guy. My approach is understand the principle first and then find the right technology. In this case, we did it with the B testing technology because you can manipulate the front end. That way, anything that can manipulate the front end is in a good position to build a better landing page. But that is just what we did with this customer. I'm sure there are better solutions for personalization. That would be just of interest to the Shopware operator. So this is why I was asking. Thank you. But I'm not the right kind of guy to give you that answer. Sorry. Thank you for that. Are there any further questions? Seeing none. Yes, there is another request for the floor. Is there an index, an industry-wide index for conversion rates? No, unfortunately not. There isn't, because unfortunately the conversion rate cannot be benchmarked so easily because it's based on individual factors. About 10 years ago, we tried to do that, and we put a lot of effort into cleaning all the data. But this rough spread can be found in the internet. If you look for conversion rates of German online shops, you will get the data of 120 online shops. But affiliate traffic, a different payment model, that's already enough. But the figures don't tell you anything. Currently, it doesn't exist because it simply involves so much work to create this data, to generate this data. And there was another question. I'm not sure whether it's the right place to ask. I'm looking at these presentations. I like them. Thank you. And I wonder, I have an online shop as well. If the customer, when the customer comes to my page, how can I realize whether they're female or male? You know, to respond accordingly. Well, I think the machine learning data guys, they have to still work on universal solutions. So far, you can purchase that as an add-on data, but on the basis of user behavior, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think the software tool providers are there yet. But there are numerous other kinds of data which are indicators for a specific type. For example, which shop category does somebody go to? In the example that I showed, we saw in the cluster analysis, we saw that there's the category of somebody who puts together their computer from different items and those who purchase the ready-made, the final product. It can go via the portfolio. Certain types have a certain affinity for a certain type of portfolio. So with a bit of common sense and the knowledge what kind of personality would buy what kind of product, you can achieve a lot. I wouldn't wait for the machine learning AI solution. That might take a while. Right, thank you very much. Are there any further questions? I think there are none left, so that brings us to the end, and thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for listening.